and everyone. Welcome to today's Asia Pacific information sharing about the MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific 2023 program. My name is Gabriel. I'm the Partnership Director at APACMed. APACMed has this partnership with MedTech Innovator when MedTech Innovator launched the inaugural Asia Pacific program in 2019. So we are really excited to have been partnering with MedTech Innovator for the last 4 years. We are entering into our 5th year of our partnership, and excited to meet all of you, see your innovation, and looking at running the 2023 program this year. I'm joined by Paul Grant, the CEO of MedTech Innovator, as well as Dr. Lim Lim, the MedTech Innovator Asia Pacific 2022 cohort, as well as the CEO for NewsQ. Yeah, so for now, please allow me to share a little bit about APACMed, given that we have a partnership with MedTech Innovator. I just want to share how we collaborate. I'll also share a little bit about some of the activities that we are embarking on this year. And by virtue of our partnership, you can also be plugged into what we are doing. Yeah, so as an introduction, APACMed is a non-profit medical technology association that represents the medical technology industry across the Asia Pacific region. So how we were started 9 years ago was that the most senior regional executive from 9 global companies, including the likes of Medtronic, Covidien back then, J&J, Abbott, Stryker, and a few others, they were the one who started this association. And the intent was really to look at efforts to advance medical technology in order to raise the standards of care for patients. So we are fundamentally a membership-based organization. We represent more than 300 member companies that develop, manufacture, and sell innovative medical device, diagnostics, and digital health products. And this includes more than 160 startups from across the Asia Pacific region. This means that startups represents more than 50% of our total membership base. And our long-term goal is really to continue to enhance the value delivered to the startup community, while also ensuring corporates are aligned with this vision, given that we have about 60 global companies. So if you look at the top 30 medtech companies in the world, 20 of them are already our member companies. Yeah, so I'd like to highlight a couple of activities that we will be embarking on. So we have programs that are designed specifically for corporates, this year that we are looking at, such as business development boot camps, catering to corporates who are looking at, partnering and working with startups. We'll also have targeted networking events, such as Call for Capital and Needs and Leads concept. We are also looking at, one of the countries that will be a focus for us in 2023 will be Korea. Yeah, so we are looking at running innovation tours to Korea, where the startup community can visit the startup clusters, the incubators, the manufacturers, and as well as leading hospitals. And another initiative that we are looking at doing is 2 initiatives that we are looking at doing is around investment, because at the end of the day, startups are also looking at raising funds. So we will be looking at organizing a MedTech Venture Day together with a VC that has medical investors, which are ultimately the clients for the startups. Yeah, so it's still work in progress, but as the year progresses, we'll be able to share more information about the MedTech Venture Day. And one of the highlights for the year is really the Asia Pacific MedTech Forum, which is APACMed's flagship event. So this year, this will be the 9th year that we are organizing this event. And again, during this event, we have a very strong alignment and partnership with MedTech Innovator. Because MedTech Innovator will be running, the top 20 from the 2023 cohort will be given an opportunity to showcase a solution at the event. And the top 4 or 5 winners for the 2023 cohort will also have the opportunity to pitch on the plenary sessions to the corporates, to the healthcare providers, to the investors that will be present at the event. There will also be a startup zone, if you are looking at, showcasing your solution to the broader ecosystem. And actually, last but not least, we will also be tagging to other APACMed and broader ecosystem activities which are relevant. In fact, just this morning, for example, SingHealth, one of the largest hospital clusters in Singapore, actually approached me about a SingHealth Allied Health Innovation Day, where they are looking at inviting startups to be able to showcase their technology to the allied health professionals. And what this means is that this will put our startups in front of the customers. And other than that, we are looking at running a few curriculum around IP strategy consideration for medtech startups seeking investments and partnership. We're also looking at running an immersion program in Penang for startups who are looking at manufacturing or commercializing their solution and want to work with contract manufacturers, for example. So these are some of the highlights that are planned for 2023, and some of them in conjunction with our partnership with MedTech Innovator. Yeah. So right now, I'll hand the session over to Paul Grant, the CEO for MedTech Innovator.
Hey, thank you very much, Gabriel. Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Grant. I'm the CEO here at MedTech Innovator. Want to make sure that everyone's able to see me over here. So Gabriel has been a great partner at APACMed for these last 4 years that we've run the program together. And the thing that's so exciting about having this partnership between MedTech Innovator and APACMed is that the leadership of the industry, the executives who make the decisions about marketing products in Asia Pacific are APACMed members. They're part of the organization. They're at that annual meeting that Gabriel mentioned before, the MedTech Forum. And through this partnership, it's a force multiplier, as they say. It gives startups the ability to not only learn through MedTech Innovator the things they need to know to access the Asia Pacific markets, but also to have access to the leadership of the large multinationals who ultimately will probably be their partner. So again, Gabriel, thank you very much for that. We'll talk more about APACMed and have you back on screen towards the end of this session. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, give you guys a little bit of background about MedTech Innovator. Then you'll have a chance to meet one of the alumni from MedTech Innovator, Dr. Lynn Lim, in a little while, who was our grand prize winner in 2022, and she'll tell you all about herself and answer some questions. So let me go ahead and share my screen and give you a little bit of an overview on MedTech Innovator. So to start with, again, my name is Paul Grant. I'm the CEO at MedTech Innovator. And if you know anything about accelerators, what you probably are thinking about is a place that people have ideas and they want to start something, but that is not MedTech Innovator. We're more like the graduate school for accelerators. We're looking for not people with ideas, but people who have companies and products that are in development. They have teams, and they're looking to bring these technologies to the Asia Pacific market, the US market, European markets, and others. And they want to do that as quickly and with as much value as possible. That's what MedTech Innovator is about. We're more downstream than most of the accelerators you're used to. So let me just walk you through a little bit about MedTech Innovator. So to begin with, what you're looking at here on the screen is the graduating class of 2022 from our Asia Pacific program. And a little bit of the corporate logos along the bottom. Those are the corporate partners who've been working with us over the last 4 years to accelerate startups. And what you want to know is that we're specifically an accelerator for medical device, digital health, diagnostic, and life science tools startups. We're not looking for biopharma companies. We're not looking for companies that are developing a drug or a biologic. We're looking for everything else in healthcare besides that. We are looking for technologies that help develop drugs and biologics, but not the actual drugs and biologics themselves. So everything else is game. Let me tell you a little more about MedTech Innovator. So we are the largest healthcare accelerator in the world by far. You see a little slide there on the right, on a little graph with some of the other accelerators that you may or may not be familiar with around the world. The key thing here is that pretty much every other accelerator that you've heard of feeds into MedTech Innovator. As I said, people go from other accelerators and then they graduate to MedTech Innovator. For those of you who've heard of like Y Combinator, for example, 16 Y Combinator graduates have then gone on to go through MedTech Innovator for our domain expertise. And we have an amazing network of over 500 reviewers and judges who serve as evaluators and mentors during our program. Our alumni have brought more than 200 products to market. This is our 10th year, or this was our 10th year in operation in 2022. This will be our 11th year going into 2023. And in Asia Pacific in particular, this is our 5th cohort. It's a 4-month virtual program. You don't have to relocate to be part of MedTech Innovator. However, there are in-person events. And we have startups that they're everywhere from seed through their Series C that are participating in the program. So it's not just, again, for people with just an idea. You might say, oh, we've already raised our Series A round. We're too late for an accelerator. That is not the case in MedTech Innovator. We have companies that have hundreds of employees that are still benefiting from MedTech Innovator. At the end of our program, we do give away non-dilutive funding, $300,000 US in awards. But again, the prizes are just that. The program itself, we always like to say, is the prize. And the prizes are more like their visibility, and it's kind of the icing on the cake. Down at the bottom, we see a couple of statistics about our global alumni. Over 95% over the last 10 years are still active or have been acquired. They've gone on to raise over $6 billion in follow-on funding after MedTech Innovator, with 32 exits or acquisitions. And 36% of our applicants each year are generating revenue. So again, lest you say, oh, I'm generating revenue, I'm too late. I can promise you, you're not too late for MedTech Innovator. Some of the resources we provide, just the highlights here. Number one is an educational curriculum that is driven by the needs of each year's cohort. So we'll survey you to find out what you need in particular, and we design the cohort's curriculum around you. It's a combination of office hours and workshops all over Zoom. We provide direct one-on-one coaching and feedback and mentorship to our cohort companies. This is not a cookie cutter program where everybody gets a 101 boot camp. This is something where everyone is getting specific coaching and mentoring based on their needs from the strategics that you saw on the slide earlier, as well as many other subject matter experts. We provide resources and funding. When I say funding, we don't give a check to every single company in MedTech Innovator, but we do provide non-dilutive funding through the prizes at the end of the program. Some of our partners provide direct cash awards as well. The most important thing, I think, are these last 2 points. Number one, community. So you get this incredible community of peers. As I mentioned, 500 alumni have graduated MedTech Innovator. They represent about 1 out of 4 investment dollars annually are going into a MedTech Innovator graduate. So stop and think about that again for a second. 1 out of 4 dollars being invested in a MedTech company of some kind is going to one of our graduates annually. Those companies are going to be your peers if you're accepted into MedTech Innovator. So that's an incredible opportunity to have these high-performing people as your peers. And then lastly, recognition and visibility. I mentioned, and Gabriel mentioned, that APACMed MedTech Forum at the end of the program, where the leadership will be sitting there in the audience, not only learning about you, but maybe voting to support your company. This is an opportunity for you to get recognition in a way that you never could at the regional level. So incredibly important. The box on the right there does make the point that we're very startup friendly. There's no equity or participation fees just for participating in the program. We are completely agnostic to geography. As long as you want to access the Asia Pacific markets, then our Asia Pacific program would be right for you. Lastly, The program is completely customized for you at any stage of your development. A little more about the program and how this will evolve. So you see, starting on the left, we are in the application phase right now. We expect a little over 400 companies to submit applications. Of those, we're going to invite about 15% to pitch in person. So about 60 companies will be invited to our virtual road tour. There will be one in-person event in Singapore, but the rest will be by Zoom. From that process, we will move on then to our accelerator, where 20 companies will be selected for the 2023 accelerator. We then move on to our competitions and our conferences that I mentioned before. We'll have 4 to 5 finalists that will select for the grand prize competition. And then lastly, one company that will win the grand prize and the others that will get supporting prizes as well. So give you a little bit of a picture of geography. We have companies from all across the Asia Pacific regions, as well as companies from the US and Europe that participate in our Asia Pacific program. As I said, we really don't have a preference for where these companies originate, as long as they want to access the Asia Pacific markets. So for example, if you look on the slide here, you see last year's program. We had companies from Singapore, New Zealand, India, the United Kingdom, South Korea, Australia, China. We had companies from California. We had companies from, really all over the globe that participated. But in particular, most of the companies came from Asia Pacific, and the highest number of companies this past year came from Singapore. So a very strong showing in 2022 for the Singapore cohort of companies. And again, just to remind you, when you think about what we're looking for at MedTech Innovator, we're just looking for a great company that's a good fit for one of our corporate partners, because they do quite a bit of the mentoring. So the important thing is that your technology is compelling, that you've got a team that people are interested in, that you've got maybe some early evidence or some mature evidence that shows your technology is going to work. And again, that you're a fit for one of those corporate partners. So as you see, we have technologies from all sorts of different areas here on the slide. You can read more about them on our website at medtechinnovator.asia. If you go to that URL, you better see all the companies from the past, and you can see that you probably are a fit for the program. Now, in addition to our Asia Pacific cohort, you can see 2 other cohorts here on the slide. So at the top, the cohort of companies that were in our US focused program. Again, companies from all over the world are part of that program, as long as the US market is the primary market they're interested in. And down at the bottom, our life science tools cohort, BioTools Innovator. All of these companies will be your peers if you're accepted into the program. So this, again, is a chance to have a much broader network of peers than just in your local city, country, or region. You're going to have peers from all over the world. I give you a rough timeline for the 2023 program. Applications are open right now until the end of January, so you still have 2 weeks to apply. And believe me, that's plenty of time. It doesn't take more than an hour or so to apply to MedTech Innovator. So you have plenty of time to apply. In the months of January and February, our corporate partners are beginning to review applications and tell us which ones they would like to see pitch on our road tour. That takes place in March through May, where I mentioned before, we'll have startups presenting in person in Singapore or also on Zoom. And the most important thing is that you'll have a chance to pitch our strategic multinationals, investors, potential customers, clinicians who might want to be one of your partners down the road. And so even if we don't select you for the program, you'll have a chance to make some incredible connections as part of the road tour. Our program then begins in June with an in-person summit, which is actually going to be in San Francisco, California this year from the 14th of 16th through June. I'll tell you a little more about that in a moment. And that's the beginning of our program. The rest of the accelerator, July through September, is virtual. That will be corporate mentorship, the opportunity to get direct feedback on your product from experts, and actually to get things like market access, understanding in the different markets. So for example, you might be based in Australia and you're saying, hey, I want to get access to China or to Singapore or to Japan. We will help you with that during our program. At the end of the program in September 26th, we'll have the APACMed MedTech Forum in Singapore. And all of our companies, just like you'll have the opportunity to go to the summit in June in San Francisco, you'll have the opportunity to go to the APACMed MedTech Forum in Singapore in September. And that's where we'll have our showcase for all of our companies, where you'll get to meet with strategics, investors, and others, and also be able to compete in our competition. So a little more about those road tour events. These are invite only. So it's not like we have a room full of people that just sit there in the audience. It's only the people we invite. Plus, as I said, we'll have an in-person event in Singapore this year. And this is, again, an opportunity to pitch, to be evaluated by multiple investors and strategics, specifically the ones who are interested in you, and to do some networking, either virtually or in person. And then the other thing that's really great is if you make it to this road tour, we also provide comprehensive feedback to every company, both verbally and in writing. So you'll actually have written feedback that you can share with your team, you can share with investors and others. We've had companies that have come back to us after the road tour and said, hey, I know you didn't pick me for the accelerator, but I took the PDF with all the feedback to some potential investors, and they invested because of the feedback on that paper. So really great opportunity to be on our road tour. It's also a great opportunity generally for feedback. Most of the companies that present are not accepted, and then they get accepted in the following year or 2 years later. We've had companies apply 3 years before we accept them. So it's a great opportunity to learn, get feedback about what will make you a better candidate in the future. A little more about our evaluation process. We're looking for 3 categories. Number 1, value. We're looking for companies that offer significant value if brought to the market, and that means not only clinical, but economic benefit. We also want companies that are able to execute, that have a strong team, even if it's not the full team, just a good early team who can take our direction and execute on it. We want you to understand your development plan. We want to know the milestones you've accomplished and whether or not you've got a large clinical burden ahead of you. We want to be able to understand that and give you feedback and help you with that plan. We want to understand your regulatory pathway, both in Asia and in the US and other market opportunities. And we want to talk about, what's going to take financially for you to execute. And then momentum. We're looking for companies that really are making progress. If you're a company that has been, in a lab for 4 years and you really haven't had much progress, we're probably not going to be that excited about you. If, on the other hand, you're achieving lots of milestones, you've got a path that's, where you're kind of accelerating, that's what we want to see. We want to see people who are making progress and who can make progress during our program. You certainly don't have to finish during our program, but we want to see you make progress. I mentioned the summit, so here's a snapshot of what that looks like. All 88 of the companies participating in our 3 cohorts will be in San Francisco in June. Again, that's the 14th of 16th through June. We invite all of you to participate that are accepted in the program. You get a chance to really bond with the other companies, with your mentors, and with other multinationals, investors, and others here in the US. Great opportunity, and that's brand new this year for 2023. This is the first time that we've ever had all 3 cohorts come together, which we're very excited about. The program I mentioned is virtual in terms of the accelerator itself. It'll be on lots of different topics. There'll be weekly webinars. And a really cool feature is that this is not just for the CEO. You can invite other people from your company to participate, ask questions. It will be an opportunity for you to have private Q&A in addition to the public Q&A, the public part of the broadcast. We do private Q&A for our cohort at the end. And these topics are all defined based on your needs. So you see some of the ones from last year on the slide here, but we change it up every year. So if the cohort in a particular year says, we really want to learn about sales, we'll have a sales webinar. And then you get a chance to connect with all the experts afterwards. So that will be broadcast for everybody on YouTube Live, but it's also a private discussion for our cohort companies. And then at the very end of our program, we have the grand finals, which I mentioned will be in Singapore, September 26th at the APACMed MedTech Forum. You see last year's here on the slide. The winner, the grand prize winner, is there in the center of the screen, Dr. Lin Lim, who you get to meet in a little bit. But as you see, all of our cohort companies get visibility. They're all down there at the bottom on the stage. They all presented in a showcase to a number of investors, strategics, and others who were there in the audience. Everybody gets visibility. A number of companies win prizes, and you get leadership visibility. So if you're in this finals, as Dr. Lin Lim was, you're literally presenting to the senior leadership of pretty much every major medtech company in the Asia Pacific region. And although you see judges there on the stage who are asking questions, ultimately the audience is the one voting for the winner. So it provides a really great opportunity for them to build a little bit of a connection with you. So with that, I've given you some background. I want to introduce Dr. Lin Lim, who is the CEO of NewsQ. And I'm going to stop my sharing and introduce Dr. Lim. So I'll bring both of us here on the screen, and we can talk a little bit about Dr. Lim's experience in MedTech Innovator. Hello, Lin. Nice to see you. Hi. So it's great to see you after some time. So you and I continue to talk though by Slack pretty regularly, right?
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah. So Dr. Lim, I thought it'd be interesting for you to take a minute first and tell our audience here a little bit about yourself. You're a surgeon. Give us a little bit of that background on what it took to start this, and then also perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your company and what you're trying to achieve. So we'll start with that.
Thank you, Paul. Very happy to be here. I'm Lin. I'm a ear, nose, throat surgeon, ENT surgeon by training, and I'm also the CEO and the founder at NewsQ. So I graduated from Singapore, the National University of Singapore, and then my ENT degree is from Edinburgh. Then later I did a sub-specialization in hearing and also in Master of Public Health, and this was in USA and also then in Japan. So I think I've always told people the best thing about this journey as a surgeon really gave me an opportunity to operate. Actually, I've operated in more than 10 different countries, and so that has given me, I think, a front row seat, first-hand experience with what the patient really needs, what their real unmet needs are. And so that has, I think, helped to shape my thinking as I went about starting up the company. Yeah, so I was previously more an academic and a researcher, did a lot of innovative new things, but I realized at some point, if this was not going to commercialization, nobody is going to be helped by it. As for my company, NewsQ is a very young company. It's now based in Singapore, and it's a medical device company. It was founded only in July 2021. So when we applied actually at the MTI, we were only 6 months old. And it is our first product is Clicks. So Clicks is in the business of wanting to let every child hear again. We want to give the gift of hearing. So what we have is actually the world's first handheld sensor control robotic applicator, handheld. And then with just one click of a button in 1 second, we want to put a 1 millimeter tube onto the eardrum, very delicate eardrum, drain the fluid so kids can hear again. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Lin. So that's a great introduction to you and to the company. And you're, I would say, a reasonably typical kind of profile in that you're a surgeon, you're a clinician who had an experience in the field. You had an idea, you saw a need, and you took the initiative to actually create a company, which is the unusual part. Most people don't take that step. They say, I have this great idea, and they think about starting a company, but they don't take the next step. So maybe we could just start off first before we get to MedTech Innovator and your experience there with just a little bit about your journey from an idea to actually creating a company. Did you have support from the local ecosystem? Did you, the initial funding for this, did that come from you personally? Did you get some seed funding? Maybe just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was with the university, National University Hospital and the National University of Singapore, and as an academic, a researcher, and also a clinician for about 10 years. And during this time, we were working on this device. So by the time I started the company in 2021, we had a functioning prototype. Yeah, but we were then told, okay, you have utilized. We had good support. We had 5 million in research funding over the years from the A-Star and also the National Research Foundation while I was at the NUS and also while I was at SG Innovate. Yeah, and then it came to a point they told me, okay, you're too far advanced. You cannot take any more research grants. You have to do it yourself. And so, of course, I was a bit stunned. When you're trained as a surgeon, you never taught how to do a startup company. So it's all new to me. So I was really glad when the MTI came along.
Great. So let's talk about that. So MedTech Innovator, you heard about it and you filled out an application. Was that your first time applying last year, or did you apply multiple years?
It was my first time applying. So when we applied, we were only about 6 months old, and then I was struggling with myself. Am I too junior to apply? Am I going to be laughed at? Do I even know anything? Should I be applying? Yeah, but I think I realized very quickly, we have very little funds. When I applied, there were only two of us, my co-founder engineer and myself. And so I thought, what was the fastest way? I wanted to learn in the shortest time possible. I want to learn as much as possible from the best people in the industry. And so I thought this was a good time to apply. And I wanted to really cut down on all possible mistakes that we could make if it was possible, and to also not make fatal ones, to refine the go-to-market strategy. And most importantly, I think to be plugged into the ecosystem and get support. So that's why I applied. Yeah.
That's great. So those are good. Those are all good reasons. I'm glad you certainly applied and took the time to do so. And would you say the application was difficult to do? Was it relatively straightforward to actually fill out the application? Do you remember?
Yes, I filled up the application myself, so I remember this very well. So I think it would be different from different companies. Some companies are very advanced and they have thought out, a lot of things. They may have applied to others before also. For us, it was, we took some hours and I think a couple of days, but it was very instructive for me because the questions that are important for the MTIA would be important for somebody trying to commercialize, to make a successful commercialization. And I found that just answering the questions actually helped me focus my thinking to what is important. Yeah, so all good. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. And that's exactly what we were hoping for. I tell people all the time when they say, like, I think I'm a little too early to apply. I say, well, just apply, because the questions alone will help you understand how not only we think, but investors and other people, they're all going to ask the same questions that we're asking. So it's great that you had that insight as well as you're going through the process. I'm glad that worked out for you. So you did your application. Then we invited you on the road tour. How did you find the experience of pitching? Again, it was done virtually. We didn't have the in-person event because of COVID last year, but how was the pitch event for you?
I think the pitch event went very well, and it was great. I think we had the webinars, which gave a very nice overview of things, telling us, we had so many pieces that we didn't know we don't know. Yeah, so it gave a very nice overview, and then we were able to work with the mentors to really deep dive into things, and they gave us a lot of very good advice. And so I think the pitch events went well. It was actually nice pitching in COVID online, but I still prefer in person at the finals. Yeah.
Yeah, no, me too. I think the pitch events are really good virtually, but it's more fun to do it in person for sure. And as I mentioned, we will be doing an in-person pitch event in Singapore this year. So that's an opportunity for companies that are in Singapore or companies that want to come pitch in Singapore as well. It doesn't have to be a Singaporean company, by the way. But anyways, yes, the in-person stuff is great. And so you went through that pitch process. And then afterwards, we accepted you into the program. We went through our process. We did some additional diligence. We talked to our various multinational partners, and they had to vote. So that's how Lynn got into the program in the first place, is that the people who saw her pitch then filled out some additional diligence with forms with us. They spoke to us, and eventually they voted. So we actually had a vote, and people raised their hand and they said, we'd like to see Lynn in the accelerator, and not just see you in the accelerator, but we wanted to mentor. So people specifically said, we would like to mentor this company. That was important to them. And the reason they wanted to do that was because they saw potential. They saw a product that they believe would have a big impact if it came to the market. And their goal is to make sure you actually get to the market. And then you're not one of those many products that we all know about and read about that, was a promising product, but didn't make it. And didn't make it usually for the wrong reason, not because the technology wasn't good, just because they ran out of funding. They didn't, maybe they designed it wrong. They didn't do the right clinical studies and so on. So the people who selected you did so because they thought you had a lot of promise and they wanted to make sure you did it right. So why don't we talk about mentoring and that phase a little bit? So tell me, or tell us, a little bit about the mentors you had during the program and some of the experiences or some of the feedback you got.
We were really lucky, Paul. We had great mentors, and we had 3 mentors, which I know you said was a little bit unusual. And they were from Jabil, Frankis, J&J Roger, and then Yenlin from Cambridge Consultants. And we worked very hard with them, but they were so giving. So we prepared, almost like going to war. I would get my team together, and we would flesh out what are the questions we want answered, and we would give them some information before the meeting itself. And they were really good. They got to know the company and the product so well, give very relevant information. They really made it a point to give you specific information, and they did their own research. And sometimes they gave us questions back to answer before our meeting. So it was really incredible. I met with all 3 of them. I think at least each of them at least 3 to 4 times. So we had almost 12 sessions. Imagine that. And we reached out also to not just the mentors, but we reached out to others who were not mentors, and they were very generous also to introduce other people. Yeah.
Oh,
we
that's
were almost
terrific.
like refining our strategy almost like every week. Refining almost every week. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want. We know that you're a company that was in progress, that had, a device that you had developed. But, this is, as I said earlier, this is that opportunity for you to get feedback to really help finalize, the product, the strategy. So I'm glad you got that kind of feedback and that you had, that kind of engagement during the program, which, as you mentioned, I told you sometimes it's unusual to have 3 corporate mentors. Some companies had 2, some had 1. And it all depends on so we ask our partners, just like we do from the very beginning, when they tell us which companies they want to see pitch, which companies want to be accepted, then we say, okay, and which ones do you want to personally mentor? Or as an organization, which ones do you want to mentor? And in your case, we had 3. You mentioned Jabil. So for those who don't know Jabil, they're the world's largest manufacturer of medical devices. And so, they're manufacturing for small companies up to the largest companies in the world. They manufacture their products. And so to have somebody from Jabil advising you on what's going to work, what's not going to work, this is, to me, one of the most exciting things. To have someone like that be able to look at your product, understand what the challenges are, and tell you, hey, this is not going to scale. Or you might have a problem with your supply chain if you go down this road, and you think you're going to be on the market next year, but it's going to be 2 more years while you're waiting for supply, like those kinds of things. I think that's the exciting thing, is that getting that. Yeah.
It was really invaluable because Paul, maybe I could give an example to just flesh it out. Do you have time? Yeah. So we were, of course, all excited. We had this functioning prototype, and then we were thinking, okay, all that we need to do, get to clinical trials, and then we'll get regulatory approval and all will be fine. But within the course of this MTI, we learned so much, So I think what it really helped me was that you have to think 5 steps to 10 steps in advance. You have to, even before the design freeze, we were already like 85% done, and we were waiting to design freeze. But I realized we have to think at the end, at the end point. So who is it that is going to actually use your product? Are they going to pay for your product? And is the person paying for your product the patient, or is it more the surgeon, or is it the hospital? Is there some overarching government policy that may deter this. And so it made us look again at, okay, this is my mission, but how best to reach this mission, right? It may not be the first market, may not be the market you also want to go to eventually. And then, so we looked at, again, the first indications, the first markets, and then we had to relook actually the reimbursement. Yeah, have we actually thought enough about reimbursement? Should we tweak the design of the device a little bit before freezing so that there's a best chance of getting reimbursed? Is the cost feasible? Do we have to work on cost before we design freeze? And then we work backwards. Actually, it was really interesting. We work backwards instead of forwards. So then we looked at okay, reimbursement. Maybe I should be building some of the questions for reimbursement needs answered into my clinical trial. Yeah, and then so now it's I think it's a lot more realistic and it's a better go-to-market strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. And I remember that from the feedback during the program that the different mentors were giving back to us as well too. A lot of our role is just to kind of coordinate all of that process and that feedback, make sure you have the right expertise. Cambridge consultants, helping you with strategy. I know that was, I'm sure that was incredibly valuable. As you said, J&J, having their input as well on the types of things you're talking about. To me, it's just that's what's so exciting about this.
Yes.
Is that a lot of the other accelerators that are out there, those you might interact with some of those same types of companies at the demo day, and they sit down and they listen to your pitch and they kind of clap and maybe give you their card. Versus this program, where, as you said, they're highly engaged, they're giving you homework. And ask you to come prepared next time. It's amazing, right? So, that's, as I said, to me, that's what's so exciting, is that they're that engaged with the startup in a way that they typically wouldn't be as well. And it also, the pressure, that's something I also want to ask you, is that like something a lot of people worry about as an entrepreneur is, what are they going to steal my idea? Is it too, should I be telling them even, these things about my company? Did you have concerns about that? And what was your experience?
I did. But I think I believe that at some point you have to get out there, and this is such a great opportunity, you couldn't miss it. And I think the good thing is it pushes you to work a lot harder because now you really have to run. It's already out there. You better run very fast. And because I know that, for example, like we have competitors, right? And no matter how good your device is, if you're not fast and you're not agile, even if you were to keep it quiet, it could be copied within a year. Yeah, so you just have to get out there. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I always tell people, don't worry about people stealing your idea. Your mentors are not going to steal your idea. That's not why they're here. And in some cases, people do sign NDAs, although it's not necessary to be in the program. You can still get, I think, everything you need even without that, although some people do. But the key is, as you said, to get out there and to get the feedback, because these people are going to find out about your product eventually, and you'd much rather have an opportunity to build the right product with their input than to do what we typically saw in the past. Before MedTech Innovator, people would get acquired. And then the acquirer would say, well, we're going to completely tear apart this product because it wasn't designed right. Or, as you said, the clinical studies weren't done properly, so we can't get reimbursement. We're going to have to do new clinical studies, and the delays are significant. And also a lot of the acquisition price might be built into things like sales. And so they'll say, well, the product that we finally brought to market is only half of your product. We had to completely rebuild it, so we're only going to give you half the money. That happens. So anyway, so the point is, build the right product with their input, have the right clinical strategy, the right, as you said, reimbursement strategy is such a huge part. And I think too, one of the real benefits, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, is also, again, thinking about not only your local market, you're in Singapore, but other countries that you wanted to access. So was during the program, what other markets, did you consider or did you talk about? I'm just curious.
So the nice thing about Clicks it is able to, for the developed countries, optimize the care, cut no anesthesia, cut down the cost, cut down waiting time. But for the undeveloped market, it is a must-have. It's the only thing that they have if they are to get the surgery. So we had to have two very different strategies. And so the mentors and the program really helped us to flesh this out. Yeah, two different strategies. Even the clinical trials may be different. The key opinion leaders are different. How we actually approach the vendors, the distributors, how we engage governments, whether we are to work with the non-profit organizations for some, or do we have to increase education for some areas. So we came to a strategy where we wanted to get a key reference agency for regulatory, for example, the FDA. And then after that, we would be able, to launch in many countries. But we also were in parallel looking at other ways of getting to market faster. So for example, maybe in certain countries in the Asia Pacific, there are ways to get to the market faster. Maybe you can only sell in that country, but already it's maybe a very huge market. Yeah, and of course, Asia and Europe are very heterogeneous. So the markets you choose, for example, Vietnam versus India would be very different. Yeah, so we were able, I think, to discuss all this, and so very, very exciting. Yeah.
So there's two other areas I want to talk about. One is the finals and, the actual APACMed MedTech Forum and your experience there. And then the other is just some tips for startups who are applying. So let's talk first about the MedTech Forum. So that was an opportunity to get in front of, a rather large audience of people. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that experience. What was that like to get up on that stage? Obviously you won the grand prize, so that was quite an experience. But just the overall experience, what was that like for you?
I was trying to appear very calm, but I was really scared. It was like after 3 years of pitching to the computer, and finally you have to appear in person. But it was very energizing. It's really nothing like pitching to a live audience. And I think the most important was to actually meet everybody in person and to form these relationships, to be able to also to say hello to my alumni, my cohort. They were very, very strong cohort last year. And I think we are keeping up, with the relationships. And I hope to, at the MTI Summit in June, Paul, get to know many more people. So it was just wonderful. Yeah.
No, it's tremendous. And of course, as I said, you won the grand prize, which congratulations again. You really deserved it. Everybody felt the same way. It was a clear win. And you were up against some really great companies, right? There were other competitors who were terrific on the stage with you. But ultimately, I think, your story, you mentioned the developing world as part of your market. I remember that as, one of the most compelling parts about your story was saying that you were out there on a mission, helping children in some of these, remote regions who didn't have access to a surgical theater and the microscopes and the technology needed to do their procedures. So the kids who had glue ear, who needed to be treated, you couldn't treat in the way that you would if you had a surgical theater. And now you develop clicks, which can actually be used in those markets. You could have, if you had been there with clicks, you could have been treating those kids. So, I just think that's such an amazing story. It really resonated.
Thank you for the plug, Paul. It's worth a lot. Yeah, it was really nice. I think the important for us, the external validation, we really appreciated that. It's very precious. Nothing could come close to that. We have so many eyeballs looking at us and the best minds, and then to have them tell us, I think this is a good product. I think it's exciting technology, and I think there's commercial viability. So I think that's important. Gave us confidence, and it also gave confidence to people who may want to partner us to invest in us. Yeah, so thank you.
Right. No, I know. And actually, that's the follow-up, right? Is that in addition to obviously winning and getting the prize, which is great, I know there were a number of people who reached out to us, and I think have reached out to you as well, who had either considered you before as an investment or now were considering you as an investment.
Yeah.
So I know those. So I think, so I'm glad, again, it gives you that visibility and the opportunity to hopefully raise capital for some really good investors, which is what we want. People who can add value. So the last topic, and then we'll get close to wrapping up here is tips. So as somebody who's been through the program and who's talking to other would-be applicants who are watching this, any advice you would give them, if they think they're too early, should they still apply? Any tips you have for, what they might do, when they're filling out that application or participating in the program? Any tips you want to give now would be appreciated.
I think regardless of what stage you're at, you would get something out of it. There is really something for everyone. And I think it's nice to get the whole team to participate. Your operations person, your business person, your technical person is all going to get something out of this. And as a company, everybody knowing more about what each other are doing, I think it's a great way to go. So I don't think there is any stage where you can't really apply. And advice, I think I would just say put effort into it and you get a lot out of it, and to engage in a way that people want to help you. Yeah. I think you're muted, Paul. Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, so I appreciate that, and those are great tips. For those of you who are out there watching, Dr. Lim has been, an incredible participant in the program. We were so happy to see you win. And I know you're accessible, and if people are interested in reaching out to you, can they look for you on LinkedIn? And
yes, definitely. Yes, please. I'd love to meet many people. Thank you. Yeah.
Terrific. Wonderful. Well, thank you again. I'll look forward to seeing you in person in San Francisco, as you said, in June at the summit. We're going to invite you, as well as many other alumni, to come back and to give back and be part of this overall process. So I'm also going to bring Gabriel back here for a moment, Dr. Lim. So let me bring Gabriel on the screen. So
Hi,
Gabriel.
Paul. Yep.
Good to see you again. Before we wrap up, I just want to give you a chance again to tell us just again quickly, as people are thinking about applying and they're thinking about APACMed, they obviously, one of the benefits is that, during the program, they get to be, interact with APACMed. If they're just interested in general in APACMed, how do they reach out to you? Where do they find you?
Yeah. So, please feel free to share my details with, anyone who wants to reach out to me, and I'll be very happy to, organize an introductory call. But I think, Paul, I think one of the things that I want to kind of like mention, hearing this session with yourself and Lynn, is that, I just want to emphasize that bit about one of the benefit of the accelerator resources is the community. Yeah. And I just want to briefly outline three things. Number one, I think we have a huge pool of MedTech alumni, which are currently APACMed, startup members, and they can continue to leverage on the work that we are doing across the Asia Pacific region. So, for example, I sit in Singapore, but we have a China office and we have an India office as well. So we can leverage on that resources. Number two, on community, I also want to share that, many of the MedTech Innovator alumni has also joined us to give back to the industry. And I'll mention two things. One is Alan Goh. He was a winner for 2019, MedTech Innovator 2019 Grand Prize winner. And he was the APACMed chair from 2019 to last year. Arun, another top 20 from Cradley as well, was our vice chair from 2019 to 2021. And this year, Dr. Lim Lin will now sit on our startup community, and we're really excited to leverage on her learnings, to support the broader ecosystem. So that's the second thing I want to mention about some of the startup, the MedTech Innovator alumni that has come through. And the third thing is that I think to kind of like, complement what MedTech Innovator is doing with the corporates, we want to continue to, support MedTech, Innovator alumni to explore potential collaboration with the global companies. And I give an example. We have a startup that has a remote patient monitoring solution, and they're looking for a clinical grade medical devices. And what we did is that we make an introduction to a global company, and they went on to sign an agreement to expand into 8 markets in the Asia Pacific region. So what this means for that particular startup is that, number one, they have an integrated solution, both the hardware and the software. Number two, they have a global partner to go to market with. And number three, they immediately expanded their market presence from 1 country to 7 other markets. And this is what, referring to what Lynn mentioned about getting to market faster.
Gabriel, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, so that's one way to support MedTech innovator alumni to go to market faster. Yeah, so those are the three learnings that I've got over the last 4 years working with MedTech innovator. Great program, and I'm really excited to look at the startups that are coming through for the 2023 program.
Terrific. Well, thank you, Gabriel. Really appreciate that. There's a reason why we partner with APACMed. It gives these companies incredible access to the industry, incredible learnings. And as I mentioned, it's a force multiplier. So they learn from our ecosystem and from your ecosystem. So thank you for this partnership. It's been incredible for the last 4 years, and we're looking to many more to come. So with that, I know we have some questions over here. I'll take the one question over here that we have in Q&A, and then I'm going to put up the last slide so people can find out where to apply. The question that was asked was they had a question regarding the pitch event locations. Can you elaborate on the options provided? Where can we find the description of the event locations? So the event locations are going to be mainly online, mostly on Zoom. And then we'll have one location, which is going to be in person, and that's going to be in Singapore. So if you're applying, we will let you know if we select you to pitch in person in a location. And usually that decision is not just based on where you're based, but also it's based on our partners. So if we happen to have a strategic, so for example, Siemens Healthineers, if your company is a perfect fit for Siemens Healthineers, and they say, hey, we're going to be in Singapore, would you like to pitch us in person in Singapore? You might want to get on a plane if you're not based in Singapore and come on over and pitch them, because it's a chance to meet with the leadership from Siemens Healthineers as well as others. So, that will be an opportunity that we'll provide you during the actual road tour. So thanks for asking that question. All right, so let me bring up our last 2 slides here. Number 1. There's a new feature in 2023, which is the Olympus Innovation Challenge. This is an opportunity for a startup to be mentored after MedTech Innovator by Olympus Corporation. So in addition to working with everybody else during the accelerator, there's a special additional extended mentorship from Olympus, and plus a $25,000 US grant for the winner who's selected. They're specifically interested in the area of minimally invasive care, new ways to detect, monitor, and treat conditions and diseases in areas like cancer, diseases of the stomach, colon, lungs, and within the urology space. And you see some examples down here on the slide of some of the types of technologies they're looking for, things like smart endoscopy, robotics, things that are transforming the care pathway, technologies for imaging, novel procedure solutions that could replace the current procedures, things that could replace drugs. We're looking for non-invasive solutions. Also things like AI that can enable new paradigms of care, new clinical decision support for doctors, smart clinics, things like that. So many opportunities. If you hear things on this slide that might be a fit for Olympus, you're going to want to check the little box in the application that says the Olympus Challenge. So it's the same APAC application, but check the APAC challenge box, the Olympus challenge box. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, where do you apply? So if you go to www.medtechinnovator.asia, that will take you to our apply page, which is also medtechinnovator.org/Asia-Pacific, same page. medtechinnovator.asia will just redirect you there. You can also scan the QR code you see on the screen here. That will give you a direct link to the application. As Dr. Lim mentioned, depending on how much information you already have collected, could take an hour or two, could even take days if you need to write some things from scratch. But either way, it's worth the time to fill out the application. If you have any questions, you can email us, hello@medtechinnovator.asia, and we will get back to you to answer your questions. So that's it. We appreciate your being here to hear all about MedTech Innovator. I hope to see your application. You still have at least 2 weeks to apply, and I can tell you it is highly worth applying. So I hope you'll join us for that. I hope to see your application. And again, I want to thank Dr. Lin Lim and Gabriel for being here. Thank you both for participating. Thank you. And look forward to seeing all of you, seeing you in person, the two of you, sometime this year. And looking forward to hopefully seeing everyone who's watching this application. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.